So, you want to make incredible samples every time. Undeniable samples that just sound super fire, like the one you're listening to right now. Producers like Coop the Truth, Frank Dukes and Nami don't just make loops, they tell stories. Their samples move, evolve and breathe. And the secret? Well, I'm giving you the 5 S's today to unlock your producer potential. If your samples feel repetitive, if they don't inspire someone to create full songs and beats, I'm going to give you what's missing today. And if you keep these S's in mind when you create your next sample, just trust me and see what happens. I'm B-Sticks, I'm fortunate enough to make a living doing this, and I'm giving you all the keys so you can do the same. No gatekeeping. Let's get into it. Soul isn't something that you can EQ. It's not a plugin, it's not a preset, it's a feeling. It's taking simple triads and elevating them to something beautiful, like I'm doing right now. An F sharp minor becomes an F sharp minor 9, a D major triad becomes a D major 7th, F sharp minor 7th, A altered, which is the 5 chord, to the D major chord, the 2-5-1 leading us back to the F sharp minor chord. Maybe a chromatic walk down like this, which just means every semitone leading us back down. Don't worry too much about that chord. And we're back again. F sharp minor, D major, to the 2-5 back to the F sharp. And we're walking down chromatically again. Broke your expectation by going to a D minor instead of a D major. Honestly, this is just a 6/4 progression with a couple of 2-5-1s in there. Changing the way that I'm playing slightly, slowing things down a little bit. But it's all about the emotion that I'm drawing out, the soul. And with that, we'll go into the DAW. Just listen to this. Now, if I told you that that was simple, you'd probably look at me with a side eye and say, don't think so. But I'm telling you, if you break it down into small chunks and try to assess what's going on here, it's not that complicated. The biggest mistake that sample makers make is overproducing. Immediately off the bat, you can see that there are only 10 sounds in this sample, and yet it sounds super full and very detailed, and we can pick out every single element almost by themselves. How can you achieve this kind of level? I would beg you to first choose your chord progression and just choose something simple. It needn't be tons of chords. You can just choose 2 chords, like I did in our example in the last chapter. I was really working off 2 chords with a couple of passing chords in between. You can even go even simpler than that. You could pick a minor 4/5 progression, and you could start in A minor, which would just mean all the white keys, a D minor to an E minor chord. And then think about how you're going to then orchestrate. And when I say orchestrate, I'm not talking about an orchestra, but I'm using that to communicate to you how you can simply translate those 2 chords, which are just 2 chords, into a beautiful sample that other producers then want to flip. And it's a process. Once you have clear intention in your head, then you can use simple techniques to tackle each individual element in your sample and make it fantastic. Trust me on that, because I use exactly the same mindset in my sample making. And when I say mindset, half the battle is in your head, believe me. Choose one sound, sculpt and craft it. Choose another sound, sculpt and craft it. But don't be afraid to say, that's it. Keep things simple, you'll be onto a winning formula. And when you strip things down, every element matters more. And this is where separation comes in. Separation. What separates you from the rest? And also separation within your sample itself. Ask yourself those 2 questions before you go to make your next sample. But let's look at what lessons we can take from Coop here in terms of separation and how we can apply them to our own samples. I want you to look at Coop's synths and pianos, which take the mid-range, the meat of the sample up. If we refer back to chapter 2, simplicity helps us in separation because we haven't got too many things fighting for the same space. We can use EQ to carve spaces out individually for sounds, and I do that all the time. However, arrangement is super important in separation. And I just want you to check out what Coop's done here with his phaser chords and his piano. Not only has he separated them out, but he's also created a call and response between the two instruments, which is, again, a super valuable technique that he uses all the time. Can you hear how the phaser chords here are getting their time to shine? And then the piano and the EP, which are layered, which are two sounds that are layered to make one sound because you can't really discern them individually. You've got the rhythmic device being used here. Bum, bum, blim, bum, bum, bling, bum, bum, bling. If we jump into our sample, I'm going to show you how I took this technique and applied it into our example sample. Now, everyone talks about EQ, but these kind of techniques here are somewhat the road less traveled, but I'm highlighting this for you. So if you appreciate what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe. Go follow me on Instagram at bsticks.production and cop a free mini kit with a mixing cheat sheet. The link is in the description. Can you see what I did here? Played a chord, then I had the glide synth here answer that chord, and then I played another chord. So I'm taking this technique directly from what I'm slightly tweaking it to serve my purpose, but it's principles that I want to teach you, because principles will take you a lot further than me just saying, I cut the middle here at 200 Hertz, because every sample is different, every sound is different, and so unique set of circumstances is going to apply. So I encourage you to learn principles, and once you learn principles, you can then apply them, and that is where the real secret sauce is. These three sounds are all I need synth-wise to sound full. Yes, I added some guitars, but my guitars were quite washed out in the back, again using a little reverb to push things further back, so they're just adding to the general feeling and flavor of this sample. So layer sounds, use call and response to separate sounds, use EQ to carve things, use side chaining, carve space for things, and keep things again simple, which will in turn help you to separate sounds. Once your elements are distinct, you can focus on the little things, which brings us to subtleties, the details that bring your samples to life. Now, the best samples don't shout, they whisper. They pull you in with details that you feel more than you consciously hear. I want to draw your attention to this EP and this piano. Can you see that Coop has deliberately delayed where these come in? They're not on the bar, and that gives a subtle variation in groove and enhances the human element to the sample. Now, I know we're all in DAWs and we're programming, but if you can just nudge things over a little bit, make sure that they don't all fall on the one, then you're going to make your samples feel a lot more real, a lot more like a human is actually performing them. And that's what we're trying to achieve here with these soulful R&B samples. And there's examples of this everywhere here. You can easily apply that to your own samples. Just nudge or delay certain things, strum out certain keyboard notes so they sound more like a pianist has played them. And there's other examples of this too. One of my favorites is this little bit of bleed in the vocal mic. It almost sounds like Coop's played his keys in and then he's just recording on his phone or maybe with a lo-fi microphone the voice note. We're going to look at this in a bit more detail later, but just listen to this little portion of the vocal. And that's in a vocal channel. You don't even really pick up on it, but it all adds to the ambience and the overall vibe of the sample. So don't be afraid to leave imperfections in, because sometimes those imperfections are what give your sample the subtle characters and bring them to life. Spice, the magic that makes you unforgettable. This is your fingerprint, the thing that makes someone hear your sample and say, that's fire, I need that. And who does this better than Coop? And I first want to point your attention to these two texture beds that he's created. I'm going to solo them out for you, and then we're going to recreate something similar. I'm going to show you how you can do that in our own sample. Filtering, mystery, a nice bed that we can lay other sounds on top of. These textures are almost a signature sound. When you hear a coupe sample, they just stick out, and I want you to work with your own textures and processing and use them as beds and use them as accents and really experiment, see what you can come up with to create your own signature textures. I mean, you could argue that everything is just spicy here, but you know, I want you to focus on textures. I want you to focus on things that you can do uniquely to yourself, which is using your own voice. So here you can even stick in some vocals yourself, record a voice note. I'm going to solo these vocals for you. There's noise in the background there, it's not clean, and all that adds to the ambience and the lo-fi texture and experience that Coop's giving the listener here. And you can see that there's interplay. You've got one coming through, and you've got an answer here, you've got like a question and answer, almost like a conversation. And you could experiment by doing two vocals and maybe panning one to the left, one to the right, or putting a certain effects, chorus and phaser on one vocal and leaving the other one dry. See how that works for you. So let's jump into our sample. Let's apply some of these spice techniques to our own work. So I've done a similar thing to Coop here in that I've used two textures and I've stretched them out again for not the whole length of the sample, just really like 11 bars. I mean, this first one here is like 9 bars up to bar 9, and then this, I really wanted to focus on modulating them, giving them some movement. If we look at the first texture, all I did was I played out these two notes, the D sharp and the F being the root, but that being on top here, and I used the sound in the sky keys called the fair bells. Added a lot of processing to it. All you're seeing at text 1 here is this sound rendered out, and then added a bit more processing, because if you use these shimmer reverbs, they never seem to stop, so you want to render these out. You'll find that this is doing most of the heavy lifting here. I find that if you use one or two notes, you can hear that reverb now. If you use one or two notes on a texture like this, it's going to work best, because you don't want it to be too distracting, jumping like that, sounding like some kind of old radar, or maybe you do, but I just wanted it to be a little bit more controlled, just bouncing up and down. So I bounced that out, rendered that out, and then added a little more processing to it. Just this reverb, lo-fi reverb on there, and a bit of EQing. And then I wanted another textural bed, just like Coop did, two melodic textural beds. And this one, I used the mellotron. I played an F minor triad with a couple of notes moving on top. If I take all the processing away here, RC20. Shaper box, which is really doing, again, the heavy lifting. So you can see Shaper box I use heavily to create these melodic textures. It's a really good plugin, and it's very reasonably priced as well. And then, and in the context of the sample, in addition to that, I also used my voice notes to record some vocals in here, which I processed pretty simply, just with some auto-tune, lo-fi reverb. And when doing this, you can think about this as a conversation. You sing one part, you leave space, you sing another part, and I could have panned these and cut them just like Coop did, but I didn't on this occasion. I just thought it sounded good as it was. There's just a few ideas for you to add spice to your samples and, you know, elevate them above your normal standard VST samples. All of these things are adding up one by one to transport the listener to somewhere else and put them in that emotional space. And spice is only powerful if it has room to breathe, which is why the final and hidden S. Space isn't just about mixing and producing, it's about psychology. I want to draw your attention back to this Coop sample. Everything's building and building and building. We've got everything, every part in until right here when it all drops out, and we've almost got 2 bars worth of complete silence, and that is so powerful. The ear resets, It draws you in. You want to hear what's going on there. Just listen to this.
Sound and silence. You need both. You need the space around the object in order to see the object.
What's not played is as important as what is played. Sometimes the best move isn't another sound when you think, let me just put something else in. It's actually restraint and knowing when to stop.